What's going on, guys? I want to talk to you a bit. I ain't been doing a lot. I loaded up another load of firewood out there where I'd cut all them trees. I may throw a short clip of that in there, and the short clip of my backpack idea, which I did set me up a backpack, but you know it's not a actual falling backpack, but it's old hunting pack that I had. I bought me these two canisters off eBay. One's for bar oil and one's for gas. This one is 750 milliliters and the other one's 1500 milliliters. So, and I've got my wedges right here, my tape, and my axe in here, and my files and my raker gauge, and not my files, but my flat file and raker gauge and stuff like that in this little pouch. And got a few tools down in the bottom of the bag. So it's not the perfect setup, not exactly like I wanted it, but it'll get the most of everything. I've got my axe right up there, that orange handle. It's the Fisker's 2 foot. I like using them to bang wedges because I found really no matter if I halved it or I buy a wood handled axe that's already been halved, over time of me beating wedges, they just get loose. And it may be that I don't, shouldn't leave them out in the weather, or maybe I should leave them not in the house or whatever. I don't know. I've tried it about every which way and setting some tape, but I just don't have luck. So instead of beating the fire out of wood handled axes and things like that, and those bang wedges just as good as anything does. So I mean, I may get me some spray foam and spray foam that handle where it ain't hollow or whatever, take some of the vibration out. But I just wanted to touch on that. That ain't really what I am making the video about. I made some videos a couple months ago about the Stihl Hexa chain. I got some of that chain and I bought some files. And when I first got it, I was really excited about it. Of course, like everybody is about any new product that comes out, if you're into a hobby or you like doing something, and I thought it was going to be this great thing, and it is. It's a good chain, don't get me wrong, but the the deal is, it's just not, to me. These are the Hexa files. I've only used one, and that's the gist of what I've done. To me, it's easy to file, don't get me wrong. You still got to hold the file flat in there, and you still got to hold your angle right. So if you're going to do all that, for me, round filing is faster, and I've been round filing longer. I could see where this would be handy if you maybe was trying to learn how to file, and you was having trouble with it or something. But my thing is, you still got to hold the level or the file flat, and you got to hold it at the right angle, just like you do a round file. The only thing this helps you do is stay down in the tooth and not be too high or too low. But that's the only thing that helps you do, in my eyes, in my opinion. And so to me, it's really not worth it, because this feels awkward to me. And that's why I've not really touched on it anymore. I was going to, see how long files lasted and all this and that. And honestly, if you rock one, it's not going to last long, unless you do like I was talking and use a round file to get it out and then go back to this. But it's just a lot of work, especially if you've got a chain grinder and you grind chain anyhow, or even if you got a chain grinder and you don't grind chain, you can take your grinding stone and simulate the Hexa grinding stone that I bought. You can simulate a whole lot of different other styles of grinding. And I'll see if I got one that I've ground here lately. And I've showed it before, but like I'll show it again. So this chain off here. That ain't one I've ground. I don't know if I've got one I ground. Maybe I got one over here, down on the floor. I'm having a wee bit of trouble. Here's one I ground. And here's one that needs to be sharpened, but I've ground it. But I do kind of that number. And it's not exactly like the Hexa. And here's a brand new one, a whole swarm of chain that has never been ground. You know, I'm not too far off from what they're doing, a little bit. I just ain't got the slope canted back as much. You know, mine ain't kicked towards the front of the tooth, the bottom, the gullet ain't, it's more back. But, and that chain cut's just as good as, you know, a round file chain or whatever. I mean, it may not be quite as fast, you know, there's all kinds of people that's done studies that round filing is faster than grinding it on a grinder and blah blah. And it may be if you're just round grinding, like trying to simulate the round grind, but I think that grinds a little faster. And I've not done any tests to prove it, but I like that. So that's what I've been doing. But back to the Hexa deal, you know, and I know people say you can flip this file over, but even if you flip it over, each side of this gets used no matter what. You go this way, this side's getting used. When you go to do your other tooth, this side's getting used. No matter if you flip it over, you still only have two sides. That's what I was trying to explain in my last video. You know, you go this way, that's using the top and bottom of this. Because this part's sharpening the top of the tooth, this part's getting the bottom. And it might not be using the whole side, so you might get a little bit out of it. But on the top, it's got these lines that's going to throw you off and hold you up unless you take something and kind of file it down. So, to me, it's a lot of trouble, and you're not getting much life out of the file. And it costs more money. The Hexa chain costs more money than regular Stihl chain does. Not by just tons, but a little bit. And the files are expensive as well. I mean, they're, you know, fairly expensive. And I don't know how much more expensive they are than Stihl round files, because I don't use Stihl round files. I just use the Oregon. And I don't run Stihl chain, and I don't run Oregon EXL chain. I run the whole swarm chain. And I have been running some of the semi-skip square ground Oregon, just because that's the only thing I could find in semi-skip. And I might could have found Stihl, but you know, for the money I wanted to spend. But that whole swarm chain does, in the full comp, and even in the semi-skip too, or the full skip, I mean, it performs just as well as any chain I've ever ran. As far as stretching and all that, a lot of people say it's stretching, and it may have when it first come out or whatever, but I'm on my like third reel of it, and I've still got a lot of chain made up. I've not cut but like one loop off that reel right there, and that's because I'm sending some chain to a subscriber. But to me, if you're gonna do this and spend the extra money, by the time you know, it cuts a little faster, like what, 12% or something faster than round filing. To me, if you're going to do that, you know, go ahead and buy a Simonton, you know, 451 square grinder, and eventually it'll pay for itself versus doing this. And then you can run whatever chain you want to. You can run cheap chain and still have, you know, it'll save you money in that because you can have to buy the steel chain. You know, I can buy a whole reel of that Husqvarna chain for what you can get, you know, probably 5 or 6 loops of steel chain for, and it just don't make a lot of sense. So that's what I've done. I like the way the square ground chain bites and the undercuts and the face cuts, and I like how smooth it is, and you know, it throws a good chip. It's not too aggressive, but it's, you know, it's really just, it's a really smooth chain. And you know, I've heard, and I like the factory. It's a little slow. I think I can get my grind to go faster than it, but I also think the raker's a little high from the factory, and they may not be high once I get my grinder. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. Get my grinder in, and you know, get my grind dialed in. It may be, the rakers may be fine, like on that Oregon chain or whatever, but they're still higher than what like comes on the whole Husqvarna chain out of the box, because brand new chain of that, and it just may be this real, but a brand new chain, I can set my depth gauge on the hardwood setting and take material off the top of the tooth. Not much, but like one swipe. The Husqvarna chain and every other regular round ground chain that I've bought is normally out of the box pretty close in between the softwood and the hardwood setting, around about, you know. So you might take a little material off if you was to swipe the softwood setting, but you're not taking any material off if you do the hardwood setting. And so it's a little in between. And to me, that's about right on your depth gauges. If you're cutting hardwood. Now, if you're cutting softwood, you know, people file them way down there, and I get it because it's totally different wood. But I'm you know, a lot of times I'm cutting hickory, red oak, white oak, and stuff like that, and you don't need a real aggressive chain. And you know, poplar, you can have it a little more aggressive, white ash and all that kind of stuff. So I got to thinking, I like that. I like the Hexa fine, but instead of spending all my money over the years or months on the Hexa chain and the files and all that, I just get me a square grinder and run my cheap chain, put a square grind on it, and in the end it'll pay for itself. If a person is going to run, you know, Hexa chain to try to mimic a square ground chain. If you're just going to round file, then you know, you wouldn't be really saving any money or paying for a grinder if you was round filing, you know. But in the end, I think you still would, because I think, like I've seen a couple videos of Guilty of Treason. I think they got to cut like maybe 15 or 20% faster or something like that. And I could be totally wrong. And I looked at a couple different options, you know, back when I first started looking at them, unless I just overlooked it, there wasn't many options for square grind and chain. It was just the Simonton 451C, and there's 2 places you can buy it, Madson's and Bailey's online. I ordered mine from Madson's. You got to call them, but they're good people, good guys. You want to make sure your, you know, limit is off your bank card, and you let your bank know that you're making a purchase in Washington if you're way far away, because they will flag it as fraud or somebody stealing they will flag it as someone has stolen your card or whatever. Because that's what happened to me. It took me like 5 calls to the bank and to them to get it all hashed out. Finally got it. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. And I'll make a video setting it up, and we'll try some chain or whatever. Supposedly they may have a preset grind already, and a lot of people, mess with it a little bit to get it better. Like they say it'll cut, but it's not just the best. I have no idea. So anyhow, but there's also another deal that you can look at. It's called square jig, and it'll go into a regular like Oregon 420 or 410 or whatever grinder, just like I got, or pretty much any round chain grinder that's similar to that Oregon, which there's a bunch of them that's made pretty well the same, but they're just different names on them. It actually clamps into where you bite your chain to keep it from moving, and it's like, well, it's a square jig, and like the length sets just say like this. Well, if I could square it up like this in the deal, this is at an angle and this is an angle, and that grinder comes down straight on it, and you bevel your stone, your grinding wheel, kind of like you would do for the Hexa, but you, instead of being at like 25 or something degrees, you turn it back to like 10 or 20 or like 5 or 10 degrees, and then you have your tilt straight on somehow. I watch videos on it. He's got a YouTube. It's called Square Cutter or something like that. I don't know how to leave links in the description and stuff like that, but he's got 3 different jigs. One's like it's like a 40, a 45, and a 50, or maybe it's a 55, 50, and 45. And one of them's a durable grind. One of them's somewhat fast, somewhat durable, and one of them's like for speed cutting. It's going to cut really fast, but it ain't going to stay sharp as long. But that, and I come this close to buying like the middle version of that, and I got to thinking, what if I don't like that, or whatever? They're $320 for the jig, and I got to thinking, what if I wanted to run different grinds, than maybe for softwoods and maybe for hardwood or whatever, or maybe make like a cookie cutting chain and then make a felon chain or whatever. I've only got one jig, and to buy all 3 of them, you're over halfway to getting the Symington. And then plus, if you don't have a grinder and you was going to go that route, to get a grinder, a couple $100 or whatever it may be, and then 320 something, well, you're a third of the way of getting something that you can do whatever you want to with. So just for me, the best option was to get the Symington, because it's not like it's going to sit around. I like the square ground chain, so I'm going to use it, and they should last for a long time. So eventually, whether it helps me cut wood faster or saves me money on Hexa stuff or whatever, I feel like that it'll pay for itself, if it lasts a long time. So that's why I've done that, and that's why I've not done much on the Hexa, because honestly, I just think the Hexa is kind of a waste of money, and really not beneficial, because like I say, you still got to hold the file flat this way, and you still got to hold the angle right on every tooth. And also, I don't like how it done as you got back on the tooth, like, and it may just be me, but to me it felt like as you got back on the tooth, like maybe the angle changed just a little bit, and that could be just me because you're still keeping these the same angle and everything, but you're just using a different part of the file. You know, when the tooth is full or the chain's new, you know, you're using the top of this more, and then as it wears down, you're going down towards more the middle where the crease is. So really, if you file a whole chain, you're using every bit of this file. So again, I don't see what flipping it helps you at all, really. So maybe a little bit, but it's not going to gain you that much more. It's not going to be like, it's not going to 2 times the life of this file, you know. So anyhow, I wanted, you know, to touch on that. That's why I've not done any Hexa stuff, and you probably won't see me do any more Hexa stuff, because, you know, especially if you're a firewood cutter. If you did nothing but fall, it might be okay, but if you're a firewood cutter, and or even just cutting trees, yard trees that may be dirty or have something in them, you rock the chain, hit a piece of wire, hit a piece of metal, whatever it may be, you spend a whole lot of time filing. And with me, I just come back to the grinder now. I used to round file, hand file quite a bit, and then I went to the grinder, then I went back to round file, but now I just, since I figured out how to angle that, and I used the small, like the 325 grinding wheel, and put that angle on it like I showed you, I just grind everything in mine now, so I don't even mess with round files or anything hardly anymore. I mean, I would if I had to out in the field or whatnot, but to me, I can do that pretty quick. I dull a chain, I take it off, put a new one on, grind that, and then if I do it again, all I have to do is set the depth gauges, you know, after so many grinds or whatever, or if it's rot really bad. So anyhow, that's kind of what I've been doing. And I went up on the hill. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I went up on the wood lot and I cleaned up that pine that had fell over and knocked all my wood over. I got most of the limbs up. I still got a little bit of cleaning. I'm gonna move my wood piles back to the back, and that's where I've been ricking up all the logs that I've been hauling from out there where I cut the trees. So trying to shift everything more towards the back where we can keep all that up front mowed a little better and it look a little better. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the Hexa deal. That's why you ain't gonna see me do much more on that. And I want to touch on this little Amazon saw real quick. I've used it again, and I ran another 3 or 4 tanks through it. And I actually turned the oiler up just a minute ago. I mean, it oiled pretty decent. It ain't like it's getting too hot or nothing. And since it's warmed up here quite a bit, so I need to reset the tune, honestly. But it still starts and runs good. And everything seems to be doing okay. The only thing that's kind of not as good a quality as I would like it to be is the handlebar and the brake. I've already about busted the brake, but it still works. It's just you got to use it with a little finesse. And the handlebar, you're not going to do a lot of yanking and twisting because I've done creased it. So as far as the chain tensioner and everything like that, that's working fairly good so far. I can see that possibly being my next problem, but I'm gonna run this little dude till she don't want to go no more, and see about it. But the cases are magnesium or metal or whatever. It's, you know, got cases that you can take apart. So I don't know. You know, of course it's not perfect. It's $100 saw, so that's, don't expect something great if you get one. But if you're just cutting a few limbs a year or something like that, I don't see why this thing wouldn't do the job for you. I don't think you're going to go out and do commercial firewooding or commercial logging with it or tree work. I mean, you could go out and do that, but it lasting past 6 months is probably slim to none. I don't know about the motor, but I'm talking about just as far as the handlebar plastics and things like that. So anyway, I'm gonna get off here and quit rambling, and tomorrow when my grinder gets here, if it does show up, I'll get some video footage of of me setting that up and everything and checking it out. We might test some chain or something, and then also ordered some stuff for the Makita 7900 because that's going to be the next saw that Cajun ports for me. And then I'm going to get the 550, and that'll probably be all the saws that I get ported, which that's about all the saws that I got that I use. But I wouldn't mind doing the 2511, but I'm going to tell you, that little muffler mod that I did to the 2511 really woke that saw up. I mean, used to it just it would barely move your hand. Now you can hold that dude and give her a full squirt and it'll rock your hand pretty good. It's not ported, but it's a lot better than it was. The muffler mod really helped it. And honestly, I mean, I've heard people say it needs to be ported or you wouldn't want to use it. And I mean, I've used it not ported, and I ain't cutting, trees with it, like big trees with it or nothing, but for limbs like that, I mean, it ain't bad. So anyhow, we'll catch you on the next one. That's all I've been doing. I just wanted to make a video, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but that's about it. Channel's doing really good. I appreciate all the new subscribers, and appreciate all the old subscribers, everybody that watches. I'm not doing as good about getting the comments and stuff as I was, but if you got a question or got a comment, you can email me and I'll try to get to it. I don't check it every day. I need to go check it right now, and or type it in the comments. If I see a question in the comments, I try to answer it, so don't think I'm looking over you or skipping you. But if somebody's got a legitimate question, I try to help them if I can, which I know I'm not, not much help, but I try to answer them the best that I can. And if it's just kind of a statement or whatever, then I just, I read them, I give them thumbs up and heart. So I don't reply to every one of them. Because if I did, I mean, that'd be all I was doing. So I appreciate y'all. We'll catch you on the next one, and keep on liking, keep on subscribing.